kind of an overall class. This is that class that gives you all the different areas to be prepared in. And coincidentally, Noah happened to prepare for all those things too. So we can learn many lessons from Noah. One of them that he learned was keep the woodpeckers in a cage. I thought that was such a cute thing. We are not going to be learning all the lessons that you can learn from Noah. We're just going to be touching on some of them. But, kind of thinking outside the box. Who would think about putting the woodpeckers in a cage? Okay. The first thing that we can learn from Noah is that Noah was warned. And in Hebrews it says, Noah being warned of God of things not seen prepared an ark to the saving of his house, which is the same reason we have been warned, for the saving of our house. In 2001, President Hinckley described many disasters, including the San Francisco earthquake, the Black Plague, the Great Depression, Hurricane Katrina, and the tsunami in Southeast Asia. And then he said, what we have experienced in the past was all foretold, and the end is not yet. Just as there have been calamities in the past, we expect more in the future. Occasions such as 9/11 pull us up sharply to a realization that life is fragile, peace is fragile, civilization itself is fragile, the economy is particularly vulnerable. We have been counseled again and again concerning self-reliance. We cannot provide against every contingency, but we can provide against many contingencies. So we have been warned. We sometimes are warned from family and friends. They give us heads up to things that are going on, things that might be coming up, things we might need to be warned about that, even if it's just don't get on the 5 freeway, there's a big accident. Things like that. But we are warned from them. We're also warned from newspapers and articles. And I was looking for a newspaper article about earthquakes and found this. I was so shocked. Can there possibly be an earthquake in Port-au-Prince? This was before the earthquake. So from experts and things that predict that things are going to happen, that's another way that we're warned. We're also warned in books, the coming economic collapse. I think a lot of us are seeing that kind of play out before our eyes and wondering how long that house of cards is going to stay standing. We also have been warned from prophets from the Old Testament, and the New Testament, and from the Book of Mormon. All of the books had prophets in it that warned us, that saw our day, that warned us of things that were to come. And we also have the privilege of living in an era with modern day prophets who also give us warnings. And it's interesting when I watch conference and when I read the scriptures, I have a little slant to things when I read it, and it's amazing how much stuff is said that just goes over people's heads. I remember talking to one of my friends after conference one day and said, oh my gosh, can you believe all the stuff they talked about preparedness? She hadn't heard any of it. So really, when you're listening to conference, listen with an ear to hear of what are they really telling me and why are they telling me that? Why have we been told that there's going to be earthquakes? What do we need to do to prepare for that? Why are we being told to get our spiritual lives in order? What's going to be coming that we need to be able to access that power of the Spirit so much more than we've been, maybe emphasized in the past? So what have we been warned of? What are the contingencies that we can be preparing for? Droughts that are happening worldwide right now, and are something that are prophesied to happen in the scriptures. And when droughts happen, especially big droughts, what happens? Prices of foods go up, and availability of food goes down. Flooding, which is happening all over. And I don't know if you know this. I did not know this. We've been hearing about all the flooding in Australia. Did you know that the coastline of parts of Australia is actually being sunken because the tectonic plates, what do they call it? Tectonic plates are sinking. They've sunk 20 feet. That's huge. And shifting. That's causing a lot of their flooding. And what happens when tectonic plates shift a lot? It causes domino effects. Like in the last year, like fast. Not like over thousands of years. Like it just happened. Earthquakes that have been happening, more and more frequencies, bigger, stronger earthquakes. bigger than ever. Economy's failing, not just in this country, but worldwide. If you have been watching the news or are on any, some of the websites that have to watch this kind of stuff, there's riots happening in a lot of parts of the world because there's not enough food to feed the people, or the food's gotten so expensive they can't afford it. And we see our food prices going up, our gas prices going up. My husband came to the store with me a couple weeks ago, could not believe how expensive food's getting. And it's just like, not only is food getting expensive, but they're shrinking the packaging sizes, so you're not noticing that you're getting less food for what you're paying. One of the things we've been forewarned about is pandemics. And can you just hold? I have like tons of stuff to get through. Okay. Pandemics, and it's one of the things that one of the classes I almost didn't teach about when I went to go see the stake president this year. He specifically asked to have a class on that this year. Again, we haven't had it for a couple years, so preparing for that, and that's so easy to prepare for, but preparing for it. Tornadoes or storms or even attacks and war, all of those have been prophesied to happen, and all of them we prepared for in very similar manners. There are some little differences, but very similarly we prepare. Okay, so another lesson. When God speaks, listen. Oh, dang. Oh, yeah, okay, this is right. I got the wrong slideshow. Okay, when God speaks, listen. When you get promptings for things, follow through on those promptings. He not only speaks to you directly through the Spirit, but he also speaks through a lot of other means, to hear. So listen to what he's saying and follow through. Every family is to have on hand at least a year's supply of basic food, clothing, fuel, and fuel where possible, and provisions for shelter. It can and will be useful in many circumstances in the days ahead. Right? This is what we're being told to do. This is what we're supposed to be listening to. Are you listening? Okay. Now, imagine being Noah. I think about this story, okay? When I first put this together, I really thought about this. How would I have reacted if God came to me and told me, hey, I need you to build an ark? Okay, I think I would have thought, how am I ever going to build something that big? I don't know how to build it, I don't know how to build it, and how am I going to build something that big? This is where faith comes in. When God asks you to do something, if you have the faith, doors will be open and you'll be able to do it. The way that Noah built the ark and the way that you are going to be building your arks is one board at a time, one level at a time. That's the way you build an ark. It's just like the whole story about eating an elephant, one bite at a time. Okay? The whole ark does not appear overnight. It's one board at a time, and pretty soon you've got a level, and then you work some more, and you've got another level. So that's how we're going to look at our preparedness. You can build your own ark one level at a time. So last year I came up with this program, and I love it, so I hope you all love it too. This is an example of, there's 4 levels. When you are doing preparedness, it's not just about food and water. It's about food and water and shelter and first aid supplies and personal things and ways to communicate and fuel. There's all these different things. Level 1 is basically kind of like 72-hour kit kinds of things, ways that you can shelter at home, things you need, 90 days of food, your 72-hour kits, things like that. Most of this is probably stuff you already have at home. So you start with level 1, and you start gathering things, and you start checking them off. And some of the things you might even have on level 2 and level 3, depending on what you've got in your storage. But these are things that we all need to have available and access to, and be able to do. So we're going to build our storage one level at a time, just like Noah. Another thing that Noah had to do was gather food. Does anyone know how much food Noah gathered? How long he gathered food for? I didn't know this. 365 days. Sound familiar? A year.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So, that's how much he gathered. And he not only had to gather food for his family, he had to gather food for all the animals too. Imagine how much gathering that took. Imagine how much space that took up. Okay. Level 1. So some of these we're going to go through. I'm going to show you some examples of levels so you kind of get the idea. So level 1 for your food supply, 90-day supply. Your 90-day supply is open and eat kinds of things. We just had a class on that, so you'll know this is what you do. Open and eat kinds of things. Now, You can either, when we first started doing our 90-day supply, my husband just wanted to go to the grocery store, started throwing everything in the cart, drove me crazy because I don't work that way. And it was very expensive to get a can of soup. It's like $1.50. I can make soup for a whole family for that much. So you have to look at your finances, what you're going to be able to afford, and figure out how you're going to make that work. Because I promise you, you can make it work, and I also can promise you, you're going to need it. So work on this first. If you don't have your year supply already, this is what you do first before you do your supply. So work on your 90-day supply. You make it simple. You make it things that only take one pot in case there's no power, it's not as much to clean, and you make it storable so there's less rotating. Not things that can be in the freezer or the fridge because you might not have access to those for very long. Okay, level 2, your long-term food supply. Perhaps if you would think in terms of not what you regularly eat, but in terms of what it would take to keep you alive if there was nothing else available. Basics, that's what we're talking about for level 2. Just your basics, your 400 pounds of grains, all different kinds of grains. The more variety, the more you're going to be happy and the more healthy you'll be. 60 pounds of beans or meat. And then add sugar, salt, milk, oil, and baking things. Okay? That's your basic year supply. Now, I think all of you can guess you are not going to make very delicious meals if that's all you've got in your long-term storage. You're going to get tired of it very, very quickly. That is survival mode. You will survive, you will have enough calories to be able to live, but you will always be hungry and you will never be satisfied. So, but that's level 2. And some of us, that's where we're at. There is something else that happens when all you have is a very limited amount of food to choose from, and that's called appetite fatigue. And what that is that basically you get so sick of eating the same thing over and over that you just don't eat. And that mostly affects older people and children. And I know we've all seen it in children, where they just won't eat if it's something that they don't want to eat. And they'll eventually just die because they don't have enough food in their system. So you want to add variety. That would be level 3. Level 3 is adding fruits and vegetables, meat, seasoning, and sauces. Okay, you've got 100 pounds of, or not 100, 40 pounds of rice in your food storage. What are you going to do with that rice? You're going to eat it plain, or are you going to have something with it? You got pasta in your food storage. What are you going to put on it? You're going to say plain pasta. Okay, think in those kinds of terms, in the terms of meals. There you go, in terms of meals. Okay. Top level is becoming the givers. You're now in a position that you've got all of your stuff and you are in a position now to be able to reach out to others, to be able to feed the sheep. Okay? That's your goal, to be able to get to that point. All right, Noah also had a place for everything. It's really hard to find a picture of this, I have to tell you. But can you imagine all those animals? You had to have been so organized to be able to do that. And I can tell you that if you're not organized in your preparedness stuff, that you won't use it for one. You won't be able to find it when you need it. And, then it just does you no good because you're not really rotating or doing anything with it. So you also need to have a place for everything. For storing food, it needs to be in something, not just sitting on the shelf. It needs to be in a bucket or in a can. Something that's going to keep the humidity, the light, and the air out. Now, of course, if we had basements, which most of us don't in the Antelope Valley, that is the best place because it stays a pretty constant, about 68 degrees. Perfect temperature for food storage. You can, however, in the Antelope Valley, store grains in your garage, even if it gets hot. They really stay pretty good. I now run my swamp cooler through my garage, and so my garage stays about 80, which is a lot more palatable than 120 that it can get if you don't have that. But even before I started doing that, my oatmeal, which is the first of my grains that you would be affected by, I'm opening cans. I just opened a couple cans this year that were done in '98, and they're fine. So you can do your grains out there. The things that have to be in the house are your dehydrated and your freeze-dried and your powdered things. Any of your milks, your dairy products, and your fruits and vegetables. Or freeze-dried meals if you have those. Some of you have cans of, stroganoff or something. If you don't store those in your house where it's at a better constant temperature, the taste goes bad really quickly on them, and you're not going to want to eat them because they just taste weird and they look weird. So those you need to find room in your house for. But that's a smaller portion of your storage, so you can do that. As far as storage spaces, the first, level 1, 72-hour kit. This next thing is 90 days, a 90-day supply. Your pantry, that's like perfect 90-day supply stuff. You also can do a year supply, a whole year supply for one person under a twin size bed. Okay, it doesn't take up that much room. I have food storage under all my beds. This is, organizing. This is the non-food kind of stuff, clothes, extra clothes, your camping kind of supplies. You want to keep it organized. So if, what if mom or dad's not home, or what if mom's not home? Does the family know where to find the stoves and find the lanterns and find all that stuff? You need to have it accessible, and people in your family need to know where it's at. So if everyone's not home, the other people know how to do it. This is a Shelf Reliance can. It's perfect for rotating your cans. I have a couple of these. I love them. They're like the Cadillac of can storage. I can easily see when I'm out of something, and it keeps it rotated for me, but they are kind of expensive. So, not everybody can get those. Some people, now that their kids are moving out of the house, are starting to convert bedrooms into food storage rooms. And that is something that, especially if you're a little bit older, that you can do. It keeps your stuff cooler, it keeps it more organized. It's a thought for you to think about for your extra bedroom. Instead of maybe having, a bunch of junk in there, you could actually have it be organized and be able to get your food storage and use it. Okay, something else. Noah counted the animals. Did you know that? He counted all the animals when they're coming on the ark.
Really? That's interesting.
He had to have 2 of some, he had to have, I think, 7 of other kinds. So he counted them all that came on. And just as Noah counted, you need to count what goes in your ark. You need to inventory. There's a lot of different ways that you can inventory. My suggestion is that you inventory at least once a year. If you're not really organized, like I'm not, you lots of times use stuff up and don't think about replacing. I now have a list on my fridge. When I open up a can of stuff, it goes on my list, and when I'm doing another order, I replace that. So that makes it a little bit easier. But inventory, because your stuff is always changing. I have like a son that just moved out of the house. I sent, a bunch of food with him when he left. So, helped me rotate it, but now I need to replace that. So inventory can be as easy as on, in a notebook. It can be on index cards in a little box if you want to be like that. There are online free systems that you can use. This one's Track My Food Storage. There's also Emergency Essentials has a free one that's really easy to use. And there's also one called Food Storage Planner that's a CD that you can get. So they're all different ways to keep track of your food storage and help you know. Some of them, the Emergency Essential one, I really like because you can put in what you have, like by the can or by the bucket, and it will tell you nutritionally what you're lacking in your food storage and what you can add to it to increase that. What minerals and vitamins you're missing. So which is, kind of cool. Okay, Noah had water. Now, I have to tell you, when I put this in there, I thought, of course Noah had water. But it only rained for 40 days. I really don't know what he did for water. I was pondering that in the car driving around town today. And I'm going to ask him that when I get to heaven. Okay, what did he do for water for him and the animals for the other 325 days? So I don't know if the water was fresh enough that they could use it, because I can't imagine storing that much. But we have been counseled to store drinking water for circumstances in which the water supply may be polluted or disrupted. We live in the Antelope Valley, at least most of us here do, and we do not have access to a lot of water. Now, if the aqueduct breaks, which it very well could in an earthquake, we might have a little bit more access to water, at least briefly. But you need to store water. You can't just run down to the creek and fill up your little 5-gallon thing and come back and have water. You need to store it. So, level 1, 14 gallons of water per person. These are all different ways you can do 14 gallons. It's not that hard. You can also do, wash out pop bottles. Free. Well, it might be free if you drink pop. My family doesn't, so I'd have to gather them from somewhere. Find someone who drinks a lot of soda and, get those. But you can rinse them out and put water in them. You can do that also with juice bottles. You cannot, however, do them with the milky kind of plastic, never in milk bottles and water bottles even, because they disintegrate really quickly, like in a year, and they will leak all over. So that is only very, very short-term storage. You can do the, regular, like this kind of water bottles, because it's a different kind of plastic and it doesn't do that. You can also store water in Tide or Clorox, but not for drinking, just for washing. In fact, somebody just told me that if you fill up your empty liquid Tide bottles or whatever, that it actually has enough residual soap in it that you can use it to wash clothes, like a cup of it to wash a load of clothes. Shampoo does that too, on fine. Also, the church has on the LDS catalog, you can order water purifying bottles for about $12. I think they're about $12, and it'll purify up to 100 gallons of water. That's perfect for a 72-hour kit and a way to be able to clean your water when your original water runs out, or if you just don't like the taste of the water that's been sitting in your water barrels for 2 years. So, having some kind of filter is another thing. Okay, levels 2, 3, and 4. My suggestion, at least a 55-gallon drum per person. That's like about a month's worth of water. And a pump to get it out, a way to seal up the top really tight. You have to have a wrench to do that, to open and close it. Some way to purify your water. Level 3, add a couple more 55-gallon drums per person. That now gives you a 3-month supply of water. A way to catch rainwater, because we get so much of that out here. But if we happen to get some, you want to have a way to capture it, and you want a way to purify your water. And, if you get fancy, you can have a way to double stack them and do, there's a lot of online ideas for that. Okay. Noah didn't have to do this, okay, but we are asked to. Put money away for a rainy day. What did he need money for after that, everything was flooded? Everything was free. Okay. He had to work for everything then. We encourage you, wherever you may live in the world, to prepare for adversity by looking to the condition of your finances. Pay your debts and have a financial reserve. Okay, it's best if you could get like a 3 months supply of food, of money, set aside, where you can get at it, not sitting in the bank either, because the banks can collapse or the electricity can be out, you can't get your money. So, and you also want to have small bills and stuff at home, because sometimes when things are bad, you have to pay exact amounts for things. And if you don't have exact amounts, then you end up paying whatever, they get to keep the change basically. Okay, so you can start building up your financial reserve 1 coin at a time. You can do a coin jar, put all your coins in there, it adds up really quickly. That's how I got my diamond ring, my engagement ring, was from my husband's change jar. That quickly turns into bills. And you need to have a safe place to put it, somewhere where it's not going to burn up or going to get locked up. Now, some people are really into doing gold and silver right now. I am not particularly that much interested in it. My husband is very. But there are experts that are now saying it's way better to have food than it is to have gold and silver. So, that's just coming from the experts. When we really get into hard times where food is scarce or there's none at all, and so with clothing and shelter, money may be no good, for there may be nothing to buy, and you cannot eat money. You cannot get enough of it to burn, to keep warm, and you cannot wear it. So in other words, if you've got some money, instead of maybe sucking it all away, you might want to think about getting your preparedness stuff all in order. And tonight you're going to get a lot of ideas in areas that you may not have thought of before that you need to prepare in. Okay. Noah had clothes. Concerning clothing, we should anticipate future needs, such as extra work clothes and clothes that would supply warmth during winter months, when there may be shortages or a lack of heating fuel. Okay, this talk, prepare ye. A lot of my quotes are out of this talk. I will be sending you this talk. It is incredible. And every time a prophet says to me, there may be shortages and lack of heating fuel. I wonder, what has he seen? What does he know that he's warning us of that? So, level 1, change of clothes and a sweatshirt. Okay, level 1, how easy is that? You all have that. Level 2, maybe 2 or 3 more changes of clothes, socks, underwear. It's an important thing. If you have to go to a shelter, you want to have some changes of clothes. That's level 2, right? Level 3, you have a lot, more changes of clothes. You also want to have some extra sturdy boots. If there's earthquakes, you want to be able to walk around and not, cut your feet on debris that's on the ground. And we've also been asked to store warm clothes that will keep us warm in case there's no heat. Now, usually here doesn't get that cold, but what if we have to relocate somewhere, or it is a lot colder? You never know, we might have to do that. So I figure there's a reason why they're telling us to store warm clothes, not just clothes. Okay, Noah was also told, or Noah also had shelter. Well, we know he had shelter because he built the ark, so that was a shelter. Our level 1, just some kind of emergency blanket or level blanket, a sleeping bag, some kind of pad to be more comfortable and to keep the cold off of you if you're sleeping on the floor, and to have a really good tent, something that's a 3 or 4 season tent. If you get a typical tent like from Costco, I call those summer tents. They do not hold up well in rain, snow, or wind. They will collapse, and then you will be really cold and wet. So you want to get a tent that's at least a 3 or 4 season tent, and they're listed like that on online things, so you'll know if it is 3 or 4 season. Dome tents are really good because they stay sturdier. Okay, Noah ate. You know Noah ate, right? He brought food for 365 days. Okay, level 1, just in my 72 hour kits, this is the food that I have. Why? Because you can't carry more than that in your 72 hour kits and still carry the other important things. So I have food bars that I actually really like. I could eat them all the time, and I would really balloon up if I did that. You can also have cans of things, but you may just be eating them cold if you haven't prepared for that. And there's a story that I got from a lady who lived in somewhere where Hurricane Katrina affected, and they were under a fire ban, so they couldn't start fires to heat up their food or to do any cooking. So they ate all their food cold. She said, you get tired of that really fast. So there are other methods you can do of cooking, some of which we're going to be doing a class on later I think in the summertime. And so you'll learn how to do that. Learn how to do solar cooking and have the things already ready to do that. So you can actually warm up your food without any fires or anything else. Okay, Noah had to clean. You know he had to clean. Okay, that's really not in the scriptures, I know. But can you imagine if he didn't? It would not have been a good thing. And it's not a good thing for us either. So, cleaning. We need to have ways to be able to clean our hands, to be able to clean our dishes, to be able to clean our bodies, to clean our clothes, to take care of trash, and to take care of human waste. Do you have things already in your preparedness to be able to cover all those areas? And if you don't, what can you add? I mean, geez, put a bucket in there. Come on, how hard is that? You've got empty buckets around. You know, do that. You can go from, you know, really simple to extreme, depending on your level. Like level 1 could just be a bucket. Level 2, you might have a toilet seat on the top of your bucket. You know, level 3, you might have like a shelter to go around your toilet so you're not sitting in the yard using it. So, you know, there's different levels with all of these things. Okay, but just remember that if you do not have a way to keep clean, disease quickly sets in. And that's one of the biggest problems in Haiti right now, is because they don't have clean water and they don't have hygiene conditions. People are getting very, very sick and dying. So you need to prepare for that. And it doesn't take a whole lot to prepare for this. One of our classes this summer is going to be on this and making some things for your storage to be able to make this more easier for you. Okay, Noah did not sit in the dark. Did you know that Noah actually was commanded to put windows in his ark so they would have light? Another little known fact, you probably read right over that. We too have been asked to have things to light things up. And let me tell you, if you don't have lighting things in your storage, and these are all, this is, you know, 1 through level 4, everything from flashlights, that one I think is actually a solar flashlight maybe, to $200 lanterns that run on kerosene and put out a lot of light. But you need to have light. I mean, otherwise you can't do anything at night and you can't find anything and kids get scared. You need to think about how you're going to do your lighting, and you need to have 2 or 3 different kinds of lighting. Okay, he also had power. Now, granted, Noah's power came from above. You, however, also can have power from above. We're going to talk about that later. But part of our power is in fuel. Wood, coal, gas, oil, kerosene, and even candles are among those items which could be reserved as fuel for warmth, cooking, and light or power. Some may be used for all of these purposes. So look into what kinds of fuels are available and what the different kinds of things you can use them for. Kerosene can be used, first of all, it doesn't blow up, so it's safe to store. It stores for like 20 years, and you can use it to heat, you can use it to cook, and you can use it for lighting. You even can use it in diesel cars. So it's a very multi-purpose kind of fuel. So look into kinds of fuels, the ways that you can power up and do things. Okay, Noah was prepared for when the hammer slipped. Doesn't that look like it hurt? Make me think that. Okay, it would also be well to have on hand some basic medical supplies to last for at least a year. Okay, now let's talk levels. Level 1, if you're taking medicine that's a life or death kind of situation, you should have at least 3 months supply of that medication. Okay, we're not going to go into how you get that. You have to figure that out on your own. Ask around. Sometimes doctors will just give you extra prescriptions so that you can do that. That was one of another thing is you want to keep a copy of your prescriptions. When Katrina hit, that goes in your document folders in your 72-hour kits. When Katrina hit and people evacuated, they did not take their medicines with them, and they had no way of proving that they needed that medication. So it's important that you keep a copy of a prescription or a copy of the label from your bottles, and keep it in there so that you have that. Hopefully you have the medication, but you want to have some kind of basic first aid kit. Level 3, we're going to move up to you want to have a more extensive first aid kit. And level 4, you want to get training to know how to use your first aid kit. Because it doesn't do any good to have a first aid kit if you don't know what to do with everything. So get some training. And hopefully we're going to work on getting some more training later on in the year. You also need a way to communicate. That is one of the biggest problems and the most stressful situations after any kind of disaster is letting your families knowing that you are okay and you being able to find out that your families are okay. You need to plan to be able to communicate. Communication could be as simple as a whistle that's kept next to your bed so that you can blow it and let people know that you're stuck underneath the dresser that collapsed on you when the earthquake hit. Okay, you don't have to yell, you can just blow a whistle. It takes a lot less strength. We have those in our bags right next to our bed. Some kind of radio so that you can hear what is going on. When the Northridge quake hit, we still had electricity and we could turn on the TV. But when the earthquake hit in the Silmar quake hit, I lived down in the valley. I was like in 6th grade or something. And the power didn't work. Nothing in the house worked. So we went out and sat in the car and listened to the car radio to find out what had happened. We knew something had happened. We knew that there'd been an earthquake. We didn't know where it was. And I remember when the Northridge quake hit, my husband was working down in the valley at the time. And we had to turn around and find out, we didn't know if that was just a small earthquake that affected our areas or if that was a big earthquake that affected somewhere else. You don't know until you find out. That's why you need to be able to have some kind of radio. Have backup batteries, have it be cranked, have it be solar, just have some way to run it so that you know what's going on. It's also helpful to have like walkie-talkies, so if you're at the house and your husband's down the street helping somebody, that you can communicate with each other. When the power goes out, phones don't work, cell phones don't work. You can use landlines if the landlines are still working because they don't require electricity. But anything that takes electricity is not going to work. Ham radios is the way that the church has chosen to use for their emergency communications. It is the only kind of radio that worked after Katrina. None of the emergency services had radios that worked. So ham radio people came into the area, set up their stuff, and helped the Red Cross, the fire, the police, everybody that was down there. They were the communication. So it's a great way to be able to do that. And just in case you didn't know, we do have classes starting next week for that. If you're interested, come talk to me. Okay. Another thing is Noah had to learn new skills. You think he knew how to build an ark? I don't know how to build an ark. So, what are some new skills? What are some skills that we have been asked to learn? Well, one of the things we've been asked to, I think I have a picture here, maybe not. Oh, garden. We've been asked to grow a garden. Not only have we been asked to grow a garden, we've been asked to learn how to preserve the things that are in our garden, to use them and preserve them. So that's what I learned canning. I learned how to dehydrate. You can do CERT training, that's search and rescue and first aid and all kinds of good stuff in CERT training. So there's a lot of skills that you can learn that will not only help you, but that will help others. Okay, this was an interesting quote. President Benson said, "Men who can perform useful skills," I'm going to say women in there too, useful skills with their hands will be increasing demand. Handymen, farmers, builders, tailors, gardeners, and mechanics can and will prove a real blessing to their families and their fellow men. I think about as I watch the economy getting worse, as I watch our finances being able to go less and less far, We still have dishwashers that break down and cars that need servicing, but maybe now we're in a position we can't really afford to go out and do that the way we used to. Find a mechanic in your ward or state. Find somebody that you can trade or barter something else with to get that done. That's what they did during the Depression. I have a feeling we're moving toward that. There has been several talks on this. Sister Beck gave a talk last year, the leadership talk to the Relief Society presidents, about this, teaching the sisters these kinds of skills. They're going to be needed. The brethren, the skills that you can do, they're going to be needed. So if you don't already have a skill, you might want to think about finding a skill that might benefit you and your family when things maybe get back to a lot more basic society than what we are at now. Okay, Noah had protection. Noah had protection from on high. We also have protection from on high. We also are capable of doing some other things. We can learn self-defense. We can learn how to protect our computers and our homes from things that might come in through the computers. Von Featherstone said, "Now what about those who would plunder and break in and take that which we have stored for our family's needs? Don't give this one more idle thought. There is a God in heaven whom we have obeyed. Do you suppose he would abandon those who have kept his commandments? He said, if you are prepared, you shall not fear." This is where one thing in my family, I do not have a problem with this. I have always felt every time I prayed about it that I do not need to have an arsenal to protect my food storage. I have felt that it's going to be protected. I don't know how. That's where my faith comes in. But every time I've asked, that's the answer I've gotten. You don't need to worry about it. It's going to be fine. I think for most of it, that is what's going to happen. So don't not get your food storage because you think, oh, well, my neighbors are just going to come and take it anyway. If you don't get your food storage, you have not followed the commandment to store and to prepare. You not only don't get to reap the blessings of that, but neither will anyone else. So don't use that as an excuse, and don't fear that you're not going to be able to protect it. Noah had help. He did, didn't he? His family came and helped. They helped him build the ark. He didn't have to do it all by himself. And you do not have to do your preparedness all by yourself either. You have the same right to prayer and answers to prayer and inspiration that Noah had. God will help you know what your family needs to do to prepare. You're learning a lot of things, a lot of different areas tonight that need to be prepared in. You're not going to be able to go out and do them all at one time. At least most of us can't. So you need to prioritize. And the best way to figure out what you need to be working on first is through prayer. Utilize that. You also can utilize classes. This was from our first aid class that we did. You can learn how to can. You can get together with a group of friends and do a bunch of canning to add to your year supply stuff. You can do cooking classes together. Those are all different ways that you can prepare for what's to come ahead and to learn new skills. And you also can be in a position where you can help others. Like I talked about in the last class, there are a lot of people that are not as fortunate as maybe you are. Maybe you're in a position to help, either financially by helping them get stuff. In our family, we've been helping our kids get all their food storage. They now have all of their food storage, plus they've got heaters and lanterns and whatever we could find that we kind of focused on different things during the holidays and got them things. But you, not only with stuff, if you can't help with stuff, you can help with skills. Especially if you're older, you were taught skills that a lot of the younger sisters don't know how to do. Volunteer to help somebody. Volunteer to teach a class. Your Relief Society presidency will love you. They have the hardest time finding teachers. They don't know what skills you have. They don't know what talents you have. Don't hide those talents under a bushel at this point in your life. It is not worth it. You need to help others, and by helping them, you're helping yourself. You can be a light unto others. If you're here, that means it's almost your responsibility now to go and spread that light and learn and help others learn what they need to be prepared in. Okay, the ark wasn't built in a day. Isn't that a great picture? It's a puzzle. It's perfect. Okay.
Is it made out of wood?
Yes, it was. Bishop McMullen said, regularly put into your home storage a few wholesome basic food items and some water that is safe to drink. Over time, you can expand this into a longer-term supply and other staples. As you do your very best You can be confident that the barrel of meal shall not waste, neither shall the cruse of oil fail. You shall be prepared, and because you are prepared, you shall not fear. I love that blessing coming from the bishop of the church. If we do all that we can do, it will get filled in. The question is, are you doing all that you can do? And only you know that. You and God. So let's talk about some steps to success. Number 1, you need to have a testimony of the importance of it. If you don't have a testimony of it, you are not going to move forward on it, and you're not going to stay with it. I have a lot of friends. In fact, I have a friend who taught the same class in her ward in Idaho about 6 months ago. Somebody from the class went to the bishopric and said that she was fear-mongering. She was saying the sky is going to fall. It was this exact same class I'm giving. And I was kind of shocked. And the bishop told her she's no longer to do any more preparedness classes in their ward because of that. You have to have a testimony of it. If you don't, you will get fearful. This will get overwhelming. You will think, oh my gosh, all this stuff is going to happen. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? You have to pray. You have to get a testimony, because with that, you'll know which direction to move in, and you'll have the peace of mind and heart to be able to move in that direction. You also can pray for a desire to do it. Some of us kind of think logically, yeah, we need to do that, but it's just not so embedded in our hearts that we have the desire to move forward on it. So you can pray for that desire, and you also can pray for the means for it to happen. I know a lot of people who really had the testimony of getting their storage, knew that they needed to get it, and made it a matter of personal and family prayer, and ways were opened that you just can't believe. One of the stories, I have a friend who had quite a few children. Her husband was out of work. They didn't have much money, but they really felt like they needed to get their storage. And she had been going to bakeries and things like that to get like used buckets to be able to store things in, because it was cheaper for her to do that. And her dad called her one night and asked her if she was still looking for buckets, and she said yes. And he said, well, he lived in a retirement community and had taken his trash out, which she was surprised at, and went out, and there was a bunch of buckets in the trash can. He said, I don't know what's in them, but come on over. Well, she took some of the kids that went over. They were full buckets of wheat that somebody had thrown away. And as they were taking them out of the trash, the guy who'd thrown them in there, who happened to be the manager who just moved in and decided he didn't have room for it, the wheat was only 3 years old. And there was 2 other trash cans that had wheat in them too. And he told them where they were, and they now had 15 buckets of wheat for free. There's another story that was in the Ensign a few years ago, and it's called A Year's Supply on 5821 or something. And there was a family, they had 13 kids, biological and adopted. And the father felt really strongly that they needed to get their year's supply, and he wanted to get it done in a year. And so they had a family council, they all got together, and he said, this is our goal, how can we make this happen? And so they came with some ideas, and what they ended up with was they would use the money to buy canning jars, and they would go and work or trade to get food to put in those canning jars. And through that year, the kids went out, I will email you the story because it's incredible what they did. They went out, and one night they got a call from a local farmer, and there was a freeze that was coming in, and he told them they could come and pick whatever they could get out of the fields before the freeze hit. They got their whole year supply of root vegetables out of this guy's garden for free one night by working all night. And she said we were freezing, but it was such a good bonding experience for the family when they were doing that. They had, they kind of put the word out at church, so people that had extra fruit on their trees, they called them and they went and got them in canning. By the end of the year, they had all of their root vegetables, all their vegetables and stuff. They had a basement or a root cellar to store them in. They had over 1,200 quart jars of fruits and vegetables that they had put up, and they had grains. They had their year supply on 5821. Okay, it can happen. The Lord wants you to get your preparedness. You have to put forth the effort. You have to ask Him, and you have to be willing to do what it takes. Okay, enough of that one. All right, inventory what you already have. Unless you inventory, you really don't know where you need to go. So you need to start with inventorying. And like I said, I try to do that at least once a year. You know, pick a time of the year that you want to always do it so it's kind of consistent, and inventory. Make a list of what you still need, and then go beyond needs and have a list of the things you want. And then look for deals, look at garage sales, look at, you know, wherever. You will find places that you can get this stuff for not very much. And then use it. It's healthier, it helps rotate it, and it avoids all kinds of gastrological problems if you are actually using your whole grains before you actually have to only live on your whole grains. It can cause people to end up in the hospital if they go from regular food to eating whole grains with all the fiber and everything, and they're not used to it. So you need to work it into your diet now. And of course, do it. You can't just think about it. You actually have to have action in this. Figure out what you want to do. Now we're back to the levels, okay? This is, the reason I did the levels is because there was so many people that were coming to my classes just felt so overwhelmed after coming to classes. And I know that there's a lot of information, and I know there's a lot of areas that we have been asked to prepare in, but if you just take it one level at a time, like Noah did, I think that you will find it's not so overwhelming. But make it a priority and work on it every week. Pick something that you're going to work on, and do it. Do it for family home evening. Do it just for date night, but do it. It wasn't raining when Noah built the ark. Imagine what it was like to be Noah. There was, is that in the picture too? Okay. Imagine what it's like to be Noah.
Your screen?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. There was no rain. It hadn't rained where they lived. I don't know if you knew that, but rain was not something that happened in the area that Noah lived in. So when he told them they were going to rain, they of course didn't really believe him. And life was just going on like normal. Nothing seemed different to anybody else. Why should they build an ark? Why should they prepare like that? Everything was fine. How many family and friends do you have that think the same thing? Everything's fine. We've been told to get this for 150 years. We haven't needed it yet. What's the big deal? A lot of people have that kind of mentality. People didn't believe Noah. They didn't believe that something was going to be happening. We have prophets that tell us what are going to be happening. We have prophets that have told us how to prepare for that. Do we believe that those things are going to happen? Do we believe them? Do we believe them enough to act on it? They thought Noah was crazy. They thought it wouldn't happen. They just didn't think it would happen. And you can really imagine how crazy they thought it was. I can imagine being the children of Noah. They, must have had a hard time too. But the result that happened because for the ones who didn't prepare. And that was everybody but Noah and his family. When will all these calamities strike? We do not know the exact time, but it appears it may be in a not too distant future. Those who are prepared now have the continuing blessings of early obedience, and they are ready. Noah built his ark before the flood came, and he and his family survived. Those who waited to act until after the flood began were too late. I have a cartoon that I had in here that said, "Go with the flow, or you'll go with the flow." Mm-hmm. And I liked it. In fact, it's up on the website right now. So it's just so true. You get to reap the benefits of preparing or reap the repercussions if you don't. It's true that ominous clouds gather around us, but just as the Savior's words brought peace to the apostles in the boat, they bring peace to us today. And when ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, be ye not troubled, for such things must needs be. If ye are prepared, ye shall not fear. But I think we've heard that like 4 times already in the presentation. Okay, if you're prepared, you don't need to fear. You don't need to feel like that either. I hope you're not really feeling like that, because some of you might be. Okay, if you get prepared, if you are preparing, and I don't mean being all the way prepared, I mean if you are in the act of preparing on an ongoing, consistent basis, you feel peace. And the more and more preparations you have done, the more and more peace you feel. It is my very strong belief that we, like Esther, have been saved for a time such as this. We have been chosen to come during this time because we were strong in the pre-existence. You are here tonight by choice. You're here because you feel the need to prepare. You need to act on that. You need to share that with others because you were saved for such a time as this. You were saved to be a leader to help others during this time. I don't know if you've thought about that before. If you thought about your role in that, just by learning, you are now have, that is part of you and part of what you can share. It doesn't do you any good to come to the classes and not go home and share this with family and friends. That's why we don't have many people coming to classes because others, well, that's not the only reason. But, the more people that are prepared, the better off it is for everybody. Can you hear? It's not working. I hope you know that we prepare not just so that we're safe when earthquakes hit. All these things that have been prophesied to come, all the things that are now starting to happen all around us, are for one reason. They're to help prepare the earth for the second coming of the Lord. That's what it's all about. If I don't do my part in that, how can I help usher that in? I started my food storage program when I was 18 years old. That's when I bought my first year supply. It's been a part of my life and a part of my testimony, the importance of it, since the time I was young. I believe probably all of you have felt that feeling within your heart and soul also. That it's an important thing for us to do. Not just so that we have food, not just so that we can be warm, but so that that food and that warmth can help us to stay alive so that we can help prepare the earth for the second coming. Part of that preparation has to do with just our temporal needs. A big part of it has to do with our spiritual needs. We can't and won't move forward with temporal preparedness for very long if we don't have a spiritual testimony of that. We need to be able to tap into the Holy Ghost, to the Spirit, to be able to give us answers to things so that we know which way that we should go. We need to make ourselves as righteous as possible so that we're able to be vessels for the Lord and to be able to hear what He needs us to do and to be able to act on that.
Is that going to be easy? Not on your life. The scriptures say that before the second coming comes, before he comes, the things are going to be so bad that even the righteous are almost going to fail before we get saved. Things are going to get much, much worse than they are. And that's why we've been told everything we've been told to do to prepare. But what we do know is there is a light at the end of that tunnel. We know that no matter how ferocious the storm is, there's always light on the other side. There always is that light carrying us on. When I start to feel discouraged in life and in giving classes that hardly anyone comes to, I am reminded why I do this. I do this because this is what the Lord has asked me to do. He's asked me to help prepare people for what lies ahead. I've seen little glimpses of what that life might be like, and it's not going to be fun. But the more that we're prepared, the more that we have others to be prepared, the easier that will be, and we will have camaraderie in that, and we will have safety in that. He comes again. Will your ark be ready? I hope that you take this class and all the rest of the classes that we're going to learn about this year, and start acting on those. Start sharing them. Start having classes. Start having groups together. Start preparing one bag at a time, one level at a time, until you have all your preparedness done, which probably you'll never feel that way. Because when you get to that point, then you start thinking, oh, I could help so-and-so. I could do this. Or you improve on what you already have. You get to start adding freeze-dried cheese to your food storage at that point. I so look forward to the second coming. It is something that I've always felt like that I might be here for. I just hope that I do everything that I need to do to get to the point that I can be here. And I hope that you do too. I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.